You said this is a private sector project. You have stated that you will fight this project. Can you be specific in what you are looking to do?
Well, I've gone on record opposing the project. I've even requested that the Attorney General give an opinion of whether the agreement that creates this project is legal or not. Win, lose, or draw, I'm going to be at the Sebastian City Council the day after the election. I think they're going to pick up my request and write a letter to Pam Bondi as well. I think it's fundamentally wrong for the Orlando Expressway Authority to dictate to this community how a rail system should run through our community. I am adamantly opposed to it. There's been some misinformation about this project and about me. One is that we appropriated money for the Orlando Regional Airport terminal for all aboard Florida. We did not do that. That appropriation was there to serve Sunrail and the light rail that goes toward International Drive. Now, the Orlando Airport Authority would, and probably will, if it's approved, allow the all aboard Florida folks to tie into that terminal from the airport. But that all aboard Florida has not even been approved yet. And I'm hoping we can be successful in derailing all aboard Florida and forcing the FEC, or maybe giving them the ability to sit down with our local communities and try to come up with a project that is commensurate and beneficial to our local communities. And I say allow them to, because again, we have a government entity, a government agency called the Orlando Expressway Authority that we can't vote on, we have no appointments to, dictating to us and saying, you can only run this train if you run it through Brevard and Indian River, Martin, St. Lucie counties at 110 miles an hour, 32 times a day, however many that is. You can't stop. You can't work out agreements with your local government officials. That just is unacceptable. I have never supported such a train ever. I did support the high-speed rail that was proposed by a Republican chairman of the House Transportation Committee that ran a high-speed rail from Orlando to Tampa in the middle of I-4. I applauded Rick Scott because he was able to negotiate an arrangement that would have not cost the taxpayers any money. That federal dollars would not be matched for Brevard County taxpayers or state of Florida taxpayers. That rail didn't happen, and I can understand why it didn't. There were some concerns, and I think they were reasonable. This rail is a bad rail, and we must stop it.
Thank you, Thad. Monique, minute and a half, please.
Well, I've written extensively on the subject. There's, in fact, on each table there's a 3-part investigative article that I wrote and published on Space Coast Daily, and every one of the sources for the information in there is cited, so you can go look it up for yourself. Anybody who thinks this is a private company doing private business is being fooled. It's that simple. We are using tax dollars to fund a railroad going right through the middle of our town that nobody in this district wants, that we're going to end up having to pay for, not just at the state level, not just at the federal level, but at our local level too, millions of dollars for every single one of the railroad crossings, and nowhere along the line where the public, where we, the people, asked about it, we were never brought into the subject. We were literally railroaded. And when I say that, I mean this project was never even supposed to go along the coastal route. It was supposed to go from Tampa to Orlando. That was phase 1. And yes, you do like high-speed rail because you sued the governor over it, our governor, and I was offended by it. I think that's the way you divide the party, not by having different ideas about how conservatism is, but by going and suing the governor of our own party. When you insist that you want high-speed rail, you can't then say, no, I don't like high-speed rail. That was phase 1 of a project. Phase 2 of the project was supposed to go from Orlando to Miami. It was never supposed to take the route that it's taking now. It was supposed to track along the turnpike. I don't know when the change happened, but it did seem to be tied to this company, all aboard Florida and Florida East Coast Industries. And I obviously don't have a lot of time to go into the details of all of this, but I do encourage you to read up on the subject because we are not getting, this is not something that's a good deal for us.
Thank you. I'm going to start to wrap it up, but I'm going to, fairness, of course, is the subject of the evening tonight. So we're going to reverse it now on this one, and then we're going to move forward on a couple of other items. Pretty quickly, I'm going to change the time
Yeah, I can't. Well, and again, I did write an article, and every single one of those things is outlined in the article. There are, I just did it again, didn't I? Sorry. All right, there's three things that are the primary subsidies. Number one, I don't care who the station's for. If all aboard Florida is going to be using it at a discounted rate, that is the very definition of a subsidy. Whenever the government pays for something that benefits a company or a group of companies, that is the definition of a subsidy. And I didn't really want a station in Orlando, and I certainly didn't want to pay for it. The second one was that there was something called a Tiger grant. I have no idea what Tiger stands for, but it is written down in the article. It was about $35 million, and that was for the planning phase of all aboard Florida, and it went through the Department of Transportation. They used this little loophole that's saying, because it went through the Department of Transportation, that they say that they've never gotten any grants. It's a technicality, but whatever. The third thing that they're doing is that they are getting a federally subsidized loan. And again, federally subsidized loans are my dollars as well. They're your dollars as well. This is a problem for me because there is very little accountability and very little transparency in this process. My biggest concern about it overall was that somebody dared to ask them for their business plan. Well, now, if you want my tax dollars to be invested in your private project, then I want to see your business plan. You don't just get to get my dollars and then go, oh, gee, I'm not going to share that because that would present some competitive issues. That is absolutely not okay. They were so against sharing their plan that they actually sued the guy who dared to ask for the plan, a private citizen of Florida. That is absolutely unacceptable. And if that's the kind of business that we're doing business with, I have big concerns about that. The subsidy for the federal loan, it totals over the life of the loan compared to what they just got some private funding overseas. It comes up to about $3 billion in subsidies for them. Well, I'd love $3 billion in startup money for my business too, but that's not the way it's supposed to work.
All right. That came from our own Tim Thomas, I'm sure.
I had a feeling maybe.
Okay. We start to wind down now. We've been given a little extra time, but what I want to do is I want to make it just a little bit more uncomfortable for us all. Not just because of the heat, but because of the questions. And maybe those are one and the same. So Monique, to Thad, you have 1.5 minutes to ask him a question, and Thad, you have 3 minutes to rebut the question, to answer the question. Go. Ask your opponent any question that you want. You've got 1.5 minutes to accomplish that goal.
Assuming that PM Bondi comes back and says that there's absolutely no issue with the existing lease agreement that you've asked about, what would you do to stop all aboard Florida? And if they told you that there was going to be a stop here, but wouldn't put it in writing, would you still support having all aboard Florida without that in writing?
Well, absolutely, and you mentioned it. I think the federal loan is another place that we need to work very hard to support our legislative delegation to prevent this federal loan to all aboard Florida. Because I think if they do not get the federal loan, that train doesn't happen. And then secondly, the environmental impact statement will be coming out, and I think we need to take a hard look and do what we can do within the framework of the environmental impact statement to stop that train as well. You know there's going to be impacts when you're running a train 110 miles per hour through our cities and counties. So